Good evening. I'm Doreen Binder, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Portland, and I'm here along with Holly Schmidt of the Interfaith Alliance on Poverty. And we would both like to welcome you to our candidate forum this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that works to help citizens make informed choices in elections. We do not endorse candidates or political parties, but rather we give voters the information they need to select a candidate. Membership information is available on our website and at the table at the back of the room, as is information on our co-sponsor, the Interfaith Alliance on Poverty. These forums are brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Portland through their education fund and through generous support from Metro East Community Media, Multnomah Bar Foundation, Paloma Clothing, Sarah Fruing Fund, and the Weiss Foundation. And in addition, we would like to thank Multnomah County for the use of this room. If you have not yet registered to vote, the last day to do so will be April 24th. You can contact the County Elections Office or register online through the Secretary of State. Ballots will be mailed out beginning on April 27th. And now I have the honor of introducing Holly Schmidt from the Interfaith Alliance on Poverty.
Thank you. I am Holly Schmidt, a member of the Interfaith Alliance on Poverty. We are 13 faith-based congregations in Portland, working together to address the root causes and systems that perpetuate the problem of homelessness and poverty. Change almost always begins with having effective, committed political leadership. And to that end, we have joined with the League of Women Voters to sponsor the candidate forum tonight and the 1 and 2 weeks on April 24th. Thank you.
We turn now to our forum for Multnomah County Auditor. This session will last approximately half an hour. I'm your moderator, Linda Mather. All three candidates for auditor are with us this evening. And I'm going to ask each of them, when I call their names, to introduce themselves as we move through. I will switch the responder for each round of the questions so that they each have a chance to answer first. They will have 1 minute to respond. The timekeepers are facing the candidates. They will signal, as we talked before, a 15-second warning and then a stop when the term has expired. As always, you are free to ask questions in writing, so please, if you want to, there will be people floating around and you can write down your questions as well. As always, too, the timing is tight, so we ask the candidates and the audience to bear with this as we do it. So, Jennifer, would you start us off with the first opening, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, it's great to be with you all this evening. I'm Jennifer McGuirk. I'm running for Multnomah County Auditor. As auditor, I'll continue our office's tradition of promoting accountable government while bringing a new needed focus on equity and community engagement in the auditor's work. The core of the county is health, social services, and public safety. That means we should be prioritizing audits of programs that directly affect people's health and safety. Let me give you an example. In 2015, an audit done by the Sheriff's Office found disproportionate use of force against people of color in our jails. Disability Rights Oregon also came out with a report about our county jails, describing deplorable conditions for people in the jail with mental health issues. In one case, a man had pulled out one of his own teeth because he'd been in isolation without access to health care. How do we fix these problems or prevent them from happening? How do we care for the most vulnerable in our community? We have to stand up for them. I hope you'll join me in standing up by voting for me this May. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, your opening?
Thank you. My name is Mark Ulanowitz, and I'm running for Multnomah County Auditor. My experience, my skills, and my history with the county helped to make me the best candidate for this job. By helping to get the most value out of every dollar the county spends, the auditor not only helps the county in its mission, it also provides accountability that builds confidence in government. I learned performance auditing during my 12-year career time at the U.S. General Accounting Office, the agency that literally writes the rules for government performance counting. I joined the Multnomah County Auditor's Office because I wanted to increase the impact of the work we do. And in 17 years, I've done audits in every department in the county, from capital construction to mental health care. I have the support of policymakers like State Representatives Mitch Greenlick and Carla Peluso, the current auditors at Multnomah and Washington County, Steve March and John Hutzler, as well as nationally known performance auditors like Drummond Kahn. Former Multnomah County and City of Portland Auditor Levon Griffin-Valade said, "No one is more prepared to lead the county auditor's office than Mark Ulanowitz." Thank you.
And Scott, your opening, please.
I'm Scott Lauren, and I'm very happy to be here talking with you about performance audits because I know the power they have to improve government programs, including programs for the most vulnerable people among us. I started off as a financial auditor and at that time a CPA. Then I was a reporter for 23 years, including 17 years at the Oregonian. Now I'm an auditor in the Secretary of State's office, where the audits I've worked on have made a big difference. Our foster care audit was the latest example. For the last decade, the county has mainly audited administrative and management functions. Those audits have their place, but that approach has left some big gaps. Mental health services, physical health treatment, the sheriff's office, the district attorney, the library, none of those services have received auditor attention in the last decade. That needs to change. 4 former county auditors think I can do that. So does former county chair Bev Stein, and so does Barbara Roberts, who was a former governor and a former secretary of state. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Okay, and let's start with the first one, and this will allow you to add more to your openings. Mark, please define performance audits and describe your experience performing them.
A performance audit is not to be confused with a financial audit, and certainly not a tax audit. Performance audits are examinations of economy, efficiency, and accountability within a program. I have been a performance auditor for nearly 30 years. I worked, while at the U.S. General Accounting Office, I did performance audits ranging from government development in Nepal, Thailand, and Indonesia to Medicaid in Oregon. While at the county, I've done a variety of audits from the smallest, looking at parking garage contracts, to the largest, looking at the construction projects for our new courthouse and a health department headquarters.
Okay, and Scott?
Performance audits are like very fair investigative reporting, but with some extra tools. Performance auditors, unlike reporters, can get into confidential documents and see, for example, case plans in Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, or teacher investigation protocols and investigation files in the Teacher Standards and Practices Commission. That's a huge advantage. Auditors can also talk to anybody in the agency. They don't have to go through a public relations person. They can talk to all the staff. They can talk to the management. They can really get down to the ground level at the agency. And then I think as a reporter, I can bring that ground level experience of talking to people who receive the services. That gives us a lot of knowledge, a lot of conviction. We really can dig out the problems that way. That's really helped on audits that I've done of crucial government services like TANF and alternative education and foster care. So I think that gives us an extreme responsibility to look at the most important services, all those advantages that auditors have.
Thank you, and Jennifer.
Thank you. What I would add to the definition that we've heard from both of my opponents about performance auditing is that it's a way to see what the condition is in a program and recommend how it could be better for all of us. Our client should be the taxpayers, the residents of our community. And we should be looking to see how what's happening within the agency for the employees and the tools they're using and what outcomes they're having in our community. Are they making effective use of our dollars? I've been a senior performance auditor at the county now for quite a while. I'm a staff auditor here and have been for over 5 years. During that time, I've pushed for real-time audits to make sure we're doing well with our taxpayers' dollars, such as of the new county courthouse going up downtown. And I've also audited things ranging from animal services to human resources. Thank you.
Okay. Scott, if you would start us off on this one. Yep. Suppose you were developing an audit plan for the Willamette River Bridge Fund. What do you think your preliminary audit objective would be and why? The Willamette River Bridge Fund.
Well, I'd want to make sure, it was interesting as a reporter, I did a story on some of the Morrison Bridge construction, and Boy, as you may remember, that got pretty messed up because the county had to follow some rules that led them to select and can stick with a contractor who was ended up polluting the river and doing a horrible job on the bridge and delaying traffic for many months. So I'd want to go in and make sure that the protocols that they had for the construction stemming from that would actually lead them to the very best contractor. And I think we could do side-along audits to really see, meaning we could go in at the time that they're planning and then executing the construction to make sure they're following best practices in that area.
Jennifer?
So our bridge projects have to go through a rather formal process because they cross jurisdictions often. So for example, the Selwood Bridge, we had to follow federal guidelines for public involvement, and we had to look at how the contracting was happening. One of the things that arose out of that project that I think would be very interesting to look at was non-union labor was used, and that was one of the things that led to the county having project labor agreements among unions and non-union entrepreneurs to make sure there was a way for everyone who wanted to be involved in that project to do so. So I think assessing how those project labor agreements are organized would be a great thing to look at. Also, are we following public contracting rules effectively? And then doing things similarly to what our office is doing now with the new construction going up. Are we planning for these things appropriately? Are we monitoring costs? Do we have an auditor just for these construction projects who can make sure that our money is being spent how it's supposed to be and that we're getting something safe in the outcome?
And Mark?
Thank you. For any new bridge or a project like that, the first thing I'd want to know is to set up a structure to understand why it is we're building it. And secondly, I would like to know that during the planning process that the right stakeholders are involved and at the table. And finally, the last thing in the early phases would to make sure that there is a strong governance structure so we understand how decisions are made in a transparent way.
Thank you. And let's see, Jennifer. Among the audits you have worked on, which audit had the most impact?
I think the audit that I've worked on that has had the most impact was an audit that came out in 2016 on animal services. It was impactful in that we gave voice to some poor working conditions that staff out there were experiencing, and we got a lot of feedback that it was the first time they felt they'd been heard. We also noticed some issues with their accounting, and so we actually had one of our CPAs do a separate audit just on the finances. We compared what was going on within the animal services shelter to best practices for animal shelters and found they were understaffed, the animals weren't getting the care they needed, and that our animal control officers did not have access to criminal background information. So if they were going to be intercepting with an animal that could be dangerous, they didn't know if the person living there could be dangerous as well. That audit won a national award for its impactfulness, for the persuasiveness of our conclusions, and we are doing a follow-up right now to make sure they're making the changes we said they needed to do.
Mark?
My most impactful audit was probably an audit of our contracting system, an audit of large contracts, specifically about contracts for human services. In going through that process, we discovered that there was not nearly as much competition for these contracts as there should have been. In many cases, it was about exemptions, exceptions, and not going out for procurement, which is not only a problem for not getting the best price, but it's also the problem for not building capacity within the community to do these sorts of services. And we also found that their ability to keep the records and have things in order such that they could be monitored was also not up to snuff. And lastly, that the contract administration process, or the process by which we go about ensuring that our contractors are meeting their obligations, was ad hoc at best. As a result, the entire contracting process was rebuilt.
Hey, Ann Scott.
I think the most impactful one is their audit of temporary assistance for needy families, which is also known as welfare. We got down on the ground level. We found out that caseworkers had up to 200 clients that they were trying to handle. We analyzed millions of records and found out that Oregon was, close to last in the nation in getting work participation and providing mental health and physical health and addiction recovery help to their clients. We looked at 81 case files so we could really describe very effectively the poor condition of the system and show that there were huge gaps in time where clients had absolutely no contact with their caseworkers up to 2 years while they were still receiving benefits. So that informed a $35 million reform of the system where they incorporated many of our recommendations, and now clients are getting much better services today. That's the kind of powerful audit we can get when we really look at the most important services, the most vulnerable people. And that one also won a National State Auditors Association award as the best audit of the year.
Okay, thank you. Mark, we'll start with you on this one. Can audits help the county deal more effectively with the homeless issues? If so, how?
Yes. That's the short answer. The Joint Office of Homeless Services is housed in the county. We are primarily responsible for providing social services to people, the homeless population. But now we are also getting involved in the development of supported housing and working with our community partners to provide the services within a housing unit that will then be developed through the city. Right now, our primary function that we have with homeless services is about rapid rehousing and rent assistance to keep people from becoming homeless. That's a really important part of this entire equation, but it's not sustainable. We need to be able to get folks acclimated and more into jobs, get their skills up so they can actually start paying their rent, and that we can then move on to some others that can't.
Scott?
Yeah, I think that the best audit on homelessness right now would be to look at what the city and county are doing and whether they're following. There's a lot of evidence-based practices on reducing homelessness and sort of scoring the city and county on how well they're doing at these various practices. For example, the League of Women Voters recently had a forum where they brought in homeless people who were talking, and you could tell in their discussion that the chronically homeless, there's a lot of trauma there, and one of the best practices is trauma-informed care. So I think we need to look at how the city and county are providing that. Permanent supportive housing, like Mark mentioned, is another evidence-based best practice. So how well are we doing on that score? Another one is supported employment, where people are getting employment, but they're also getting a lot of wraparound services to help them stay on the job. There's a long list of these things. I think the auditors can do a real favor with an independent, objective review of how the city and county are doing on those services.
Okay, thank you. And Jen?
Thank you. Just to follow up a bit on that, our office actually has done 2 audits of the housing and homeless system in the past couple of years, and we have looked at those strategies and how well the county is doing. The missing piece that I see, and that I've pledged to do since last July if I'm elected, is to look at what it's like to try to access those services. They're out there, they're available. Are people able to access them? Do we have the right kind of match between what a person needs and what we're able to offer? I've heard anecdotally that some places have what's akin to a lottery system, and that if you don't get in 1 month, you might not be able to get in the next month. So I think we need to be on the ground talking with the people who are on the receiving end to make sure that we are being effective with the dollars we have and really getting into outcomes where people can stay in their housing, don't become homeless, or we can help them get into housing more quickly.
Thank you. And let's move to another one from the audience. Scott, if you would start us. How will you hold county decision makers accountable to taxpayers, and how will the public know?
Yeah, I think the audit office has not written strong audit reports that would capture the public's attention. That's something that we've done at the state. We've tried to really focus on the issues that matter most to the public and to vulnerable people that are served by the county. I think if we zero in on those kind of services and really don't pull any punches when we're describing the problems in those services, write strong reports, very clear, work with the media some, which I think I can do as a former journalist, we're going to get more attention for those reports, and they'll actually, get some they'll get some stories in the paper, they'll get people paying attention, it'll help elevate the discussion. So that's holding county officials accountable, because they're obviously responsible for those programs. So we need to not do audits that are written in such a abstract or 15,000-foot way that nobody wants to read them or pay attention to them. And I think we've really succeeded at doing that at the state, and that's part of the approach I want to bring to the county.
Jen?
I actually think that we have done some really great innovative work in how we communicate our audit results, both through doing reports where we communicate verbally through audio and video recordings, as well as through dashboards. But certainly, we can always do more. And one of the things I think we need to do is change our approach a bit. We've been a bit hesitant to tackle some issues, like the conditions I was talking about in the jails, like what's going on in our senior housing, our in-home care programs, and our adult care homes. We need to be reporting our results not just through written reports that we present here to the board, but also directly out to the people through community meetings, perhaps forums like this. I would like to do town halls. I would like to go out to community groups and listen and learn from them and present to them on the work we're doing, because that pressure that we can raise together will help us hold our other elected leaders accountable. Follow-up audits are another great way to hold them accountable too.
Mark?
As auditors, we are in the business of making sure people understand what promises policymakers make and whether they keep them. Possibly, or probably, the biggest challenge as auditor is going to be about making the transition from the old printed word, PDF files on the website, to something that's much more accessible, shorter, and easier to understand. But that's not necessarily just about keeping people accountable. Like Jennifer said, that we're not getting enough of our information out to people. We represent the whole county, but tend to be focused in this room. I'd like to see the county auditor do more presenting to other cities and agencies outside Portland, because one of the best ways to hold elected officials accountable is to have other elected officials get after them.
Okay. And Jennifer, right? Are there major areas missing from the county's current audit plan?
Yes, I think so. And in fact, that's one of the things that inspired me to run. As I mentioned, I want to do an audit of housing and homeless services from the perspective of people trying to access those services. I want to do an audit on jail conditions. There's a lot that we can follow up on there. I want to do an audit of adult care homes. There are over 600 that contract with the county. We can use sampling methods to visit those facilities and make sure they really are safe for our loved ones, our seniors, disabled adults, as well as the people who work in those facilities. I also want to bolster the publicity we've been doing of our Good Government Hotline, which any resident in the county, any employee can call to report suspected fraud, waste, and abuse. But people also use it to report a number of other concerns, often related to potential discrimination and harassment they're facing in the county. So I'd be changing our office's structure to add an organizational ombudsman who would provide a confidential resource to employees with those concerns. Thank you.
Mark?
Some of the things that I would like to do, I'd like to focus a lot more of our energy on issues of disparities, racial and ethnic disparities. This is a sort of a theme that will have to be going on from one year to the next. There's probably about 8 years of this work to do. I'd like to start with disparities in health outcomes. It's an area that we have one of the top clinical systems in the state that is actually focusing on this issue, but seems to be not making very much progress, and in fact, things are getting worse in some areas. So that's something I'd like to see, what we've been doing and where we could possibly start picking up the pace. I'd also like to look at disparities in the criminal justice system. The sheriff's office is taking over more and more of the patrol business in East County, having taken over from Troutdale and Fairview, and we'd like to see a little bit about how they're doing compared to what the police were doing that we saw with the MacArthur report.
And Scott?
Yeah, there's a lot of territory to cover because the auditor's office hasn't focused on a lot of these important services. I'd like to look at school mental health and family support services. Every school we visited in our state audits of alternative education and graduation rates said the lack of mental health care was the primary concern of theirs, and that was true of teachers and principals across the board. I would like to look at addiction treatment services in the county. Those are all contracted out. Contracting has been a sticking point for the county in managing contract performance effectively. And as we all know, the ability to treat addicts effectively is central to getting a handle on many of our community concerns. And I'd like to do, on affordable housing, I think we need a joint state, county, and city audit that just follows the money. We see wide disparities in cost per unit among programs and among different cities and counties. And we see wide disparities in the incomes of people housed. Like in DC, 70% of the spending was used for residents making up to $88,000. That's the kind of thing we need to spotlight.
Thank you. And as always, the time goes before we have all the questions. So we turn now to our conclusions. And Scott, if you would start us with yours, please.
Sure. I hope this discussion has given you a good sense of the potential for in-depth performance audits to improve government. We all know with income inequality, with persistent inequities in our society, there's no more important time to do that than now. As performance auditors, we have an incredibly powerful tool to find more effective and efficient ways to provide county services. We can help the people who need county services the most. As independent auditors, we're a crucial check and balance in the system, finding problems at ground level, even if doing so makes people uncomfortable, providing solutions that work. I know auditors have the skills to focus on the most important services the county provides, and I believe we have a duty to do so. If I'm elected, I promise to pursue that audit agenda with energy and focus and enthusiasm. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Thank you. I want to thank you for all of the great questions tonight. I hope that you've gotten a sense of what we're each like and who would be the best pick for you. One of the reasons I entered this race, in fact, a key reason, is because I see great potential for us to take what I see as a baseline for performance auditing and take it to a new level. I've been really happy to hear my opponents also talking about things like equity and community engagement, which are pillars of my platform that I've been running on for what's coming up to be a year now. But when we talk about equity, it's not something that's piecemeal. It's a marker of effectiveness because our programs are supposed to serve the most vulnerable people in our community. Equity is not something that you look at and can take away or add on to an audit. It should be a piece of every audit. It shouldn't be something that's given a timeline. And it matters not just to the people we serve, but to our employees who have said it matters. I hope that you'll say it matters to you too and vote for me. Thank you.
Mark?
Well, I'd like to thank Interfaith and the League for inviting us. I may be biased, but auditors have never gotten as much attention as they deserve. That said, I've never been an auditor that looks for headlines. I've always been most focused on the work. Because I don't believe a good auditor is someone who just finds problems. A good auditor is someone who finds problems, identifies solutions, and then is able to work with other managers and elected officials to get things done. This is going to be particularly important because I think the next 4 years are going to be considerably more difficult than the last as far as the sort of work the county does. And I'd hope you support me to be the person to lead that work. Thank you.
And thank you. And that's all the time we have for this panel. I think I'll go off record and say, yes, for auditors, it was very interesting. Sorry about that. We will have a short break before our next one, which is for the county chair. We thank the candidates for the participation. I want to thank the audience for your questions, the Interfaith Alliance on Poverty for co-sponsoring, Metro East Community Media for recording, and all our volunteers. Please check our website, lwvpdx.org, to view all our forums and for TV replay information. For more primary information, please pick up, and I need to show it to you, the Nonpartisan Voter Guide at your local public library, New Seasons Market, or Meals on Wheels Dining Center, or for electronic, go to vote411.org. Election Day is May 15th. As in all Oregon elections, you will receive a mail-in ballot. They must be mailed back in time to be received at the official drop-off site by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, May 15th. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Be informed. Remember that your vote counts and help other people to vote as well. Thank you.